Good evening. My name is Luke Beer. I'm the president of the Rotary Club of DuPont Circle. I'm so glad that you could all join us. Today we have a wonderful guest speaker. I'm very excited to ask Director April to introduce him. Thank you.
Hi there. It's my honor and privilege to introduce my friend, Kémo. We met earlier in the year. We were in a leadership program together, and we were really challenged to look at how other people experience us and how we're experiencing the world so that we can level up and give our best in everything that we do. And I was so pleased to meet Kémo and understand what he's up to in his work life. And it's a really beautiful thing that we're meeting virtually at least a couple times a week so that we can cross-pollinate, so we can hear from people like him who are doing amazing things in other communities across the nation. So thank you for coming to one of the nation's capital Rotary Club meetings and talking to us about what you're doing. Kémo is the founder and CEO of Design to Build firm and Trep House, which we'll talk a little bit about. He's a serial entrepreneur with a liberating agenda, applying innovation for revolution. And he's got three major things going on he's going to touch on a little bit. He has an impact real estate investing and offsite fabrication endeavor he's working on. He has an innovation support and venture development super hub, which focuses on the underrepresented, which he'll describe more in detail. And then he also works in the business credit finance consulting arena for disadvantaged startups and small businesses. So he's going to talk a little bit about what he's doing and how it all links together and how it's benefiting his community. And he's on the news more and he's on fire. And we're just happy to celebrate him today. So take it away.
Wow, that was a glowing introduction. Thank you so much, April. I'm honored to be your friend and brother in BBA arms. It has been a great experience, wondrous experience in getting to know you. And I am beyond thrilled to be here today to present to the Rotary Club of DuPont. I've heard of Rotary Clubs. I've been to, I think, one interest meeting years ago, long before any of this, had evolved to this point. Myself had evolved to the point that I have with my entrepreneurial endeavors. And it has come full circle. So it's interesting. I see more value now than I did when I was still very much so just in ideation. So this is wonderful, and thank you. I'm glad to be here. As April said, my name is Kémo A'akhutera. I'm the founder of a few organizations. The main one I'm going to talk about is Design to Build, as well as Trep House and Biz Credit Inc. All organizations that I've formed, all endeavors that I've created are always focused on impact. So while all of them are for-profit organizations, they are benefit organizations in that we're focused on the public good in creating vehicles, processes, systems that allow those who are underdeveloped themselves as well as in their communities and not being given equal access or opportunity, not being equally distributed. So with that, Design to Build is a fabrication, an offsite modular developing operation here in Dayton. We're taking shipping containers and converting them into what is called cargo texture. I'm a portmanteau of cargo container and architecture. And we're doing this with the purpose of figuring out how to best approach the lack of community involvement and influence in the real estate development industry. Oftentimes communities are asked, especially those that are low to moderate income, they're asked what their opinion is after the project has already been greenlit and the money's been raised and the designs have been signed off on and finalized. And the only time you really see real change on something like that is if people, chain themselves to the doors. So they're an afterthought and they're told what's going to be coming for them. And oftentimes it's not the right thing that community needs. And so with Design to Build, we're seeking to provide the community the means to get involved in the real estate development world, because without the ability to create your own places and spaces that you need and want, you have no control over your destiny, as well as, any control over your tangible surroundings, your school districts, your roads, so on and so forth, are all influenced by the infrastructure and the businesses and individuals that run organizations in those spaces. So we have to give access to those communities. And I'm going to pull my deck up now, and that's just a little primer of why we do what we do with Design to Build, which is for us more important than the what and the how what we're doing. And a little bit about us: modular construction and real estate development firm. And we are operating as a for-profit, but we are a cooperative, converting shipping containers into prefabricated sustainable spaces for persons living in especially underdeveloped communities and allowing them to live with dignity, work efficiently, and enjoy life. Our overarching mission of Design to Build is to provide a practical and scalable approach to developing and constructing sustainable and affordable real estate to realize social, commercial, and environmental paradigm shifts. Our vision is to be the leader of factory-built housing for disadvantaged communities, especially the world over, in urban environments, rural areas, any terrain, climatically and fiscally alike. And our objective today, we're going to go over, is repurposing housing, containers for housing, hospitality, and working to eradicate homelessness. A lot of that work revolves around building awareness and helping the community, get involved and begin to understand why the challenges exist in providing housing and building in general, not just housing, but other types of infrastructure, and how urgent, there needs to be a solution because of the growing challenges that are presented. And then in presenting that solution, we want to show that, it can be something that is engaging, interesting, boring. It's not boring. It involves cultural influence for it to actually have life. And it needs to be sustainable and accessible. And we've been meaning to update, but we don't even want to really refer to affordable, because there is a relationship with that word that is often correlated with lower quality. And we are certainly not providing low quality housing to our stakeholders. And then in providing labor support, giving access to employment, those that are underemployed or unemployed, and not just lacking employment or underemployment, but access to profits, access to the real revenues that are created by the work and labor of the individuals. There is a statistical fact that 80% of all wealth in an organization is as a result of the workforce in that organization. And it's our belief that that workforce should always be those who benefit the most, because they're the reason that it's possible for the wealth to be created. And then also dealing with recidivism. A lot of times, our reentering citizens are not able to get adequate access to not just housing, but jobs, or even upward mobility from jobs to create legacy and prevent the need for their successors to go through the same experience, because it's a vicious cycle. And our process, we can do everything from the feasibility studies and market analyses, all the way up to our factory completion and delivery. And our goal is to really zero in on not just the design, but the logistics. And that allows us to make the process much more efficient, much more effective, and addressing homelessness and displaced citizens. Our goal in providing the models that we provide is stability, sub-dignity, and it means a return to a quality of life. So our whole mindset and what we're doing is reducing and reusing. We're reusing containers which were never designed to be lived in. They're actually over-engineered for that. And we're taking something that had one purpose and has now been changed to another. And in doing that, we have to redesign the way that we've been approaching things. We have to rethink about how we provide and support, and we had to refuse to, to go back to our previous ways just because it's easier than change. Some of the biggest problems is 43% of Black Americans are able to buy a home compared to 63% of white Americans. And not just is it that there's a disparity to that effect, but a lot of the housing options that are available to residents, whether they're owning or renting, is dilapidation. A lot of the materials in it are toxic and have not been updated. And those types of poor housing conditions, some people may be here. I heard, I think her name was Rose, who says she's in psychology. I'm sure she's familiar with the social determinants of health. And a lot of that involves where you're living at and how that environment influences you. And it kind of sets you up to never be able to get out of that vicious cycle. And so annually, 4 million people experience housing discrimination in Black neighborhoods, regardless of their quality, receive lower evaluations. I'm sure people have seen some of the news that has been put out there about how there are steep, and I think 23% is actually being pretty liberal, or conservative. It's actually, a much higher number where people are seeing 40, 50% devaluation because it is a Black owner, and doing experiments to prove that that is in fact the case. And we have more pie charts to get into housing discrimination based off of what demographics are making the complaints. The towering housing crisis is not just about purchasing, so renters are actually at risk of losing their homes just as much as homeowners today, because the cost of rent is rising at an incredible rate, because even the homeowners who are the investors, the landlord that own these properties, their costs are going up, and those costs are being passed on to the renters, as well as the lack of adequate jobs, or not adequate jobs, I'm sorry, jobs of with livable wages. There's a lack of those, as we know. We see the people trying to push for higher minimum wage. However, because of inflation, et cetera, that does not solve the problem. And across communities, we see the disparities in Black and white home ownership, and a lot of wealth is locked in home ownership. Most millionaires in this country are millionaires as a result of the real estate that they hold, the homes that they own. So most of those millionaires are not liquid. I can go pull $1 million cash out of the bank, but I do have assets, mostly in real estate, that certify me as, in fact, a millionaire on paper. And so our solution is affordable and sustainable housing by using standardization and economy of scale, no different than Ford did with F-150s in Michigan. And when you look at how long it takes compared to a single family home, a lot of that is because of the policy in place, as well as the fact that you can't begin building until you can't pour a drop of concrete, you can't set up a single piece of 2x4 until you have all the pre-development and the development work completed. Construction comes last. With the work that we're doing, because we can be done in 30 to 90 days, our starting expectation of delivery right now is 90 days in our very early stages, and we'll get it down to 30 eventually as we really dial in our process. But you can be doing the work, zoning, permitting, et cetera, any holdups and whatnot, while we're doing our work in parallel, thus cutting your timeline in half or greatly reducing it compared to having to wait to do any construction and development until after the site has been cleared and prepped, et cetera. Also, to that effect, it's not just the issues with the economy, but we also talk about the changes to the climate and the natural disasters and the, near parabolic increase over the past 20 years. And it has actually the past decade, our range shows in this estimate, but the past 20 years has really been troubling with the acceleration of climate change. We know now that it's no longer considered fake news. Even here in Dayton, we had a tornado that destroyed 663 homes and 54 businesses in 2019. And that was, it was amazing to be in the middle of that experience and witness how quickly, no hotels being available, as well as adequate housing for people to just occupy in the meantime, how much of a lack there was in our community. And so then thinking about like what happened with Hurricane Harvey, or the wildfires that we've seen happening, for example, on the West Coast, we are not building homes fast enough. We are not building structures to address natural disasters, relief for natural disasters fast enough. And so these are becoming exacerbated issues with the climate change. 2020 was a record $50 billion year worth of natural disasters, and 205 of the total, 205 total $1 billion disasters. It's hard to put that in context. So it's been 205 total $1 billion level disasters in the past 20 years. So that averages out about 10.25 disasters per year, causing upwards of about $1 billion price tag per event. So this is every year, and it has only been getting worse over time, as you can see in the bar graph, and it is going to continue to get worse. Like I said, parabolic, the past 40 years is really, 60 years has gone parabolic. And our solution to that, we have a model specifically for that, for allowing us to do rapid, deployable mobile solutions that can address not only disaster relief and can be held in preparation by affordable housing agencies or DROs or government programs like FEMA. We can have them on site at our facilities or in storage somewhere at a holding location to be readily deployable based off of where there's expectations. For example, what's going on in Puerto Rico right now, these could already be on their way, knowing that the hurricane is coming, and they had not recovered from the last hurricane they went through a few years ago. And so our goal is to sell 100 units in the first 12 months because of the factorization of what we're doing. and scaling that rapidly by establishing those strategic partnerships, not just with developers and planners, but also, as you said, affordable housing agencies, even groups like this who may say, hey, we want to pool resources and create, a couple of models for addressing homelessness and partner with the city, and put these in a specific location and create a community where you could approach us, and that's feasible without it needing to be, well, we have to find our own developer, we need to find our own project manager, we need to find our own, contractor, so on and so forth. Having an in-house, full firm model dev, con, development, construction that allow us to engage with those smaller groups or even individuals, and giving us that access to the market. Some of our target markets are affordable housing agencies, disaster relief organizations, real estate developers and investors, small businesses and startups, creating pop-up shops and exhibits, single small person offices, or, multi stakeholders, groups of entrepreneurs can maybe create their own 4 or 8 person setup, and everybody put their piece in and be able to lease it out when they outgrow it, et cetera. Land, homeland, property ownership, investment properties, Airbnbs, creating even Airbnb communities, so on and so forth. Social and community impact, of course, not last but not least, small markets, community gardens. We're actually working with someone now to do community gardens in North Carolina on, I'm sorry, not community gardens. We're doing vertical farms on top of existing community gardens to make those sites, tens of thousands of times more efficient to grow, an acre's worth of food in 750 square feet. So it's some really amazing things that are happening with cargo texture, hospitality and retail, creating, first floor or, just straight single level storefronts, lounges, clubs, hotels, salons, spas, bars. We get to the social and community impact. We talk about affordable housing. Our people have done urgent care, pop-up doctor offices and clinics, homeless villages, markets, with education, creative spaces, libraries, museums. People think oftentimes it can only be done inside of the containers, but you can actually make the containers the outer support structures and create clear span spaces over top of those outer container walls. And so talking about what it looks like on our end with our projected profits once we're able to fully launch. Of course, we're in the red a little bit, but because of the nature of what we're doing, the on-demand type of approach, the integrated project delivery, agile manufacturing principles that we're applying, we don't have a lot of waste, almost very, very little waste, very little inefficiency, and allows us to approach the green, the black very quickly because of the types of projects we're doing and us using that economy of scale effect and that standardization. It becomes very repetitive and becomes very projectable, very realistic projections that can be had based off of the demand and what is being offered. In the past 3 years, a lot of the work has been on securing the team, which we have an 8-man team active that is on our calls every week since that start date in January of 2019. And we are at the point where, we have several professionals in the pipeline here, abroad. Some of these professionals can be remote workers. Everyone has been really just waiting for us to close on our facility. And I think here's our trajectory roadmap. When we talk about the official launch, the first Wednesday of January 2019, we officially incorporated ourselves in the fall of 2020. We secured a key partnership with a specialist in the cargo texture space who became a member of our co-op out in Seattle. And then through winter 2021 and coming into 2022, we were able to acquire our facility in the spring of this year. It is a 55,000 square foot facility. We include the office spaces and whatnot on 5.5 acres with about 50 parking spaces. We launched a crowd fund this year. And as we go into 2023, we had begun procuring contracts and beginning to start the build outs as we close on our building. Since we closed on our building in May, we have I just got an email today actually from the owner claiming that he has done the final repair that was pending our move-in. And basically our goal has been October 1st, go live, have a grand opening event, And I don't know if I can zoom out and try to zoom in on that, but guess not. But this is our facility here in West Dayton. As you can see, it is on a very large plot of land there in the bottom left aerial image. It's going to allow us to set up almost anybody here plays any type of video games like Call of Duty with the new town, where we're able to create, a town that'll be basically our models laid out, giving people, the community a chance to engage and see what these look like in real time, because a lot of people in landlocked communities, in depressed, communities, low to moderate income have not experienced this. And a lot of it is in the exposure, allowing people to imagine and dream again, and see this as something that's approachable, because it very much is no different than Legos. I mean, it is obviously, but when in its simplest context, oversimplified context, it is like Legos. So a few of the team members, obviously myself, my COO, Greg Wimberly, who has a background in project management with a BA in construction management. And everyone on my team, I'll say, except myself, is a real estate professional, real estate development, construction professional with a degree. And it's not because I just wanted to be the guy who didn't have a degree. I actually went through a really interesting experience that diverted my journey into the college track and forced me into entrepreneurship. And so with that, I've been fortunate to have, not be the smartest person in the room with anybody, any community that I seek to be a part of. And it is no different with my teammates on this team, where they are all brilliant in what they do. And I've just been really good at, understanding everybody and making it easier for us all to speak the same language to work towards a common cause. And then in the cooperative opportunity, we're looking for experts who are not just in construction, but also development. So architects, engineers, designers, the goal of this is not just to do this here in Dayton, but we actually have a design in our catalog that will allow us to expand and set up locations in other places, again, using containers, creating places that are very similar to our existing location out of containers, thus allowing us to create a franchise-like operation. And with it being a cooperative, that would be a part of the greater network, the nodes, if you will, I almost think blockchain, of other developers, offsite developers that are part of this collective ecosystem. So we're also talking about our investment opportunity. We have launched a crowd fund to give our communities and those that support us as a chance to be involved as we serve the community. It gives everybody a chance to invest and be a part of the effort. So we have a crowd fund campaign on a platform called Wonder Fund, and I can share the link with that in the chat. But it is, just allowing everyone to be a part of this, because we know there's a disparity with communities of color in the innovation and entrepreneurial efforts receiving, just a dismally low amount of the total investment dollars going into supporting entrepreneurship and innovation. We are using crowdfunding, which is what it was designed for, to not only give the community a chance, but also make it possible for us. And though we have closed on the building, we did do that before we got to the point we did the crowdfunding. I was insisting on that because our communities are oftentimes, hesitant and doubtful, skeptical, and rightfully so, because there's a lot of vaporware that's created out there. And so in securing the facility with our own resources first, it just shows how serious and committed we are to this work before we've ever taken, a single dime or, set ourselves up to take a single dime from anyone in the public space. So with that, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present to you today. There's my contact information, my email, and that is my direct phone number. And then at design.2.build.firm, I think that's our Facebook. My graphic designer / marketing director did this. And I'm not sure what that ad is at. I think that maybe. Either way, you can find us on social media, either Design to Build Firm or DTB Firm. It's always one of those two names. Our website currently is a landing page. It's actually a work in progress and being built. And we actually have to get some content to the web developer for that. But there's a lot of just moving pieces with this. And we thank everyone for being present to listen to us today.
This is perhaps a somewhat selfish question, being from Columbus, but do you guys work in Central Ohio?
Yes, absolutely. So because of the nature of the product, the base or raw structural system, the containers, they're designed to be put on trucks, and so that's the main reason we chose that particular building system, as they call them, structural system, as ours of choice. Because if you use any other types, you have to have special trucks to move them, and it's a lot of work. But containers were designed to be moved originally as freight storage units. And so we're just in us changing them. We don't change the mounting point, so it makes it extremely efficient and effective to ship them. And we're keeping them within a certain radius right now with this location just as we get started. But yes, Central Ohio, we're about 2 or 3 hours out for our focus from Dayton as the radius. So we might go as far as Detroit, north, far as west as almost not quite St. Louis, as far east as Pittsburgh, and as far south as Nashville.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
I have a question. So I've been visiting the Nashville area a little more frequently, and Patrick has been pointing out apartment buildings that are being built on properties that were zoned for residential years ago and just sat. And they're kind of in the middle of nowhere. They're not near stores. There isn't a bus line, et cetera. And it sounds to me like you're looking at creating communities where you have walkability or transportation. And I was just wondering if it sounds like a lot of what you've put together is almost like a kit, right? And I can see how you're connecting people that want to build community, and then you're able to plug into them, as opposed to bringing your concept to a community that, a bunch of NIMBYs that don't want to hear you anyway, basically,
Exactly.
right? So,
Precisely.
and I'm curious, do you have colleagues or other, collaborators where they've gotten further along in their strategy that kind of runs parallel to yours? I'm wondering if there's a success story out there that you could share with us and where they're at.
Oh yeah, huge success story. So there's one in Cleveland by the name of Container Homes USA, and it is Black owned. His name is Derek Childs. He's actually a pending advisor of ours. He's a little, how do I describe Derek? He's from a very rough background and made a change and pivoted his life, but he still has that very gruff type of energy. But he has taken quite a liking to me, because he's like, one, you're always smiling, you're always chipper, but you know your stuff and you know how to build team and community. And he's been a lot of, one man banding it. And I brought people to the table that, in him doubting what we were capable of, really proving to him that we were serious. And he has told me, and, in his experience, that it has been extremely lucrative to do the work that he's doing. And he had been outsourcing his work to like $1 million facility in Dubai. He was having things shipped over here, kind of pre-cut and pre-ready. And then he had a local community, local fabricator in Cleveland. And just last year, he acquired his own standalone facility after being, in operation for 8 years and hyper successful at outsourcing it with partners. And he was saying, one, he wished he could have done it sooner like we did. But with the facility that we've had, he's been here and he told us, your facility is double the size of mine. I don't have anywhere near the type of land footprint you have to build your spec models. Every amenity in the building is perfectly suited. Everything you have already, I have to get built in. You all should be, he was like, every one of your team should be multi-millionaires. Everything that you touch should be gold, because you are, just primely set up to support and do this work. And he's very much so on the capitalistic side of things, with, the impact for the sake of, getting in, whereas ours is leading with impact. And it's like, the money will be there. It's not the primary motive. It really is get people access. But with development, it's just a lot of money involved just by nature of what it is. So with that, it's a very new, it's a renewed trend. If you even Google President Biden and modular housing, this whole entire year, he's been campaigning along with HUD and Senator Marcia Fudge, L. Fudge, talking about how the only way we're going to address the affordable infrastructure issue is to go back to factory built. Because in the 1960s, at the end of the 1960s, we peaked at the number of total homes in the inventory that were built offsite in factories, which was about 60% at the time. And today, it's about 3 to 4% of all homes built are built off-site. So the trend actually trailed off because at the time technology had reached the point that it had where they could do, autonomous building, or, the what was being built was tight tolerances, et cetera. And so now it's at a point where technology is caught up, and it can be as good or better than, hand built, because handcrafted at the time was superior to what technology could do. And now they're saying we can only address this. Even the president on the National Mall steps at the beginning of June, did a whole speech with 25 different modular developers, all displaying their different homes and building styles on the National Mall. And he said that's when he made that whole statement about how the only way we can address this is factory built housing. We have to change the policies and not manufacture mobile homes that are, flimsy, you can put your foot through if you sneeze too hard. Cargo texture, for example, the containers are waterproof, fireproof, bulletproof, and windproof. They have to be dropped in war zones. They have to be dropped in places that whatever is inside of them has to be secured outside of you hitting it with the rocket launcher, in which case everything inside is destroyed anyway. So really, truly, it's over-engineered for living in. And especially with the changes to the climate, they're putting new categories on these storms. We have to build infrastructure that's resilient as well as beautiful.
How does insulation work in that kind of modular construction?
So it would work not too dissimilar from how it would be on stick frame or other metal buildings where they have a couple of different techniques, but we personally like spray foam, closed cell cellulose, closed cell cellulose spray. So it's a foam spray that they spray and it expands out, and it allows us to, may have newer product that is more efficient than what is typically used, but of course it costs more. So a lot of builders try to, cut costs by cutting corners on what's used, but our goal is the durability and the longevity of it. So we put better products in and we can reduce our costs, not by, reducing quality, but by increasing the production and by, the sourcing of material, buying in large amounts, the supplies that we need, therefore able to negotiate better costs. And same with even the tooling and the teams that we have, because of their specialization, because there's no wasted time. Something a lot of people don't know is, and I know it sounds like I'm going off on a tangent, but we want to make it clear, construction inefficiency accounts for 3% of our world's GDP, because there's so much wasted time and cost and, cutting corners and things having to be repaired and come back and touched up, because everything is about reducing the cost. And the only way they can do that when it's by hand is to reduce the quality of material. So we use the spray foam, but we also have a polymer-based paint that is made for metal specifically, that was invented, I think it was DuPont, just a few years ago, they released to the public, where it's designed to reflect heat in the summertime and retain heat in the wintertime. And so not only does it arrest any particular rust, but it also is designed to be fluctuating and adjusting based off of the temperature, and make it to where it works in unison with the closed cell foam spray on insulation, to make it just like a typical structure made out of brick or stick frame or what have you.
Thank you so much.
Problem.
Kémo, this is incredible. I lived and worked in Afghanistan for a number of years, and this was a big point of interest, because there were so many containers brought inland, and then there was no desire to then remove those containers, sending them back to the ocean. At that time, it was really big challenge was to try and convince people that they would want to live in these houses. So I'm just wondering, obviously there's an interest in those micro homes on Instagram, but what kind of marketing avenues are you trying to promote to encourage people that these are wonderfully livable spaces? I know you're going to be designing some spec houses out in your facility. I'm excited. We're going to have you back in a year when you got your little town built out in the parking lot with all the.
Love to have you out.
But could you just touch on that? How you have to basically create a consumership. I appreciate the utility of them and how transportable they are and how dependent and strong they are. But we also have to convince the consumer that they want to live there. And how's that happening?
So a lot of it is really just that exposure piece once again. So with that, we're even planning a road show, touring the Midwest to start, and approaching affordable housing organizations in these medium and smaller cities. We're really focused on secondary and tertiary cities because they're oftentimes overlooked for the Chicagos and the LAs and New Yorks of the world. But there's all these surrounding smaller cities and locales, townships, villages that a lot of people, leave and go to and live in, and then come back into the big city to work. And so we want to focus on that low hanging fruit where there's not a lot of interest or focus. And oftentimes that's where you have some of the most underdeveloped or undeveloped communities, low to medium income individuals. And so that is really where we're showing that there is a way to address the need, because even with the existing housing, a lot of the housing is, and these are issues that are known at a federal level, state level, at the municipality end, and even like NGOs, all these other groups get this, but it's really just the common people who don't understand that, one, like the current housing stock, it was designed at a time when they didn't have the understanding of design they do now. So there's a lot of wasted space, there's a lot of toxic materials, there's a lot of things, but we have this affinity with historic preservation. We don't want to let go of the old way, while this feels like how I grew up and I want to keep this house and bring it back to its former glory. We don't let go of properties. Other countries don't have the luxury of doing so. And so we're seeing this slow shift at even the municipality level where they're saying we can't keep trying to just use existing inventory. We had to look at new ways. And at the federal level, there's changes at the HUD end, for example, where their policy is the reason that a lot of this is hard to do. Even cities allowing, where once it was just like the LAs and San Francisco's doing ADUs with the backyard cottages or like the mother-in-law suites. Now even places as small as Dayton, Ohio are allowing it, where before it was this NIMBYism, like not in my backyard, but it's like we have to do something about even our homelessness. Yeah, it's not LA, but we still haven't been able to figure it out, and it's just increasing. And so there's this shift from all ends of the spectrum where everybody's realizing like this way we've been trying to hold on to doesn't work. And it's only getting worse, it's only getting hotter in the summertime and colder in the wintertime. So we don't have the luxury of, just constantly saying we'll get to that. And so people are looking at creative options, and new generations, younger people are like, I don't want, a house with a huge yard that I have to maintain and heat and, and do all this work on. I actually rather just something that's more quaint, it doesn't have a lot of upkeep, it looks great, it's modern, it's affordable. And they're doing like these maybe you've heard build to rent communities. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of this build to rent where people are like, I want to feel like I own my own home because it's a standalone property, but it's really the apartment building just broken up and scattered to where there's a little bit of space between each unit. And so there's this shift already towards smaller properties, towards the changes in policy, towards the consumers, interest, the broad consumer interest in something that makes more sense, even empty nesters, whose children are leaving this, with the generation.
I'm thinking of boomers. Agreed. And I'm thinking of Airbnb. They're saying that that all the houses that were bought since 2020 went to people that already owned homes and were going for rentals. I stayed in a container in North Hollywood for $65 a night 4 years ago, and it was the best Airbnb experience I ever had. And it was just in a family's backyard, and they made $150 over the weekend, and I wasn't taking a home off the market that someone could be living in, it's 1,400 square foot home. There's incredible opportunities. I believe, as your friend said, you guys will be making a boatload of money. And I'm excited to see where you go with this next. And I know you're going to have incredible impact as well. And that's what you're after. Unless one of my colleagues has another burning question, I think we're probably going to, Kristen, please.
Can I ask too?
Yeah.
But they'll try to be quick. What is the sale price for an individual unit? Can you give me a round number for if I walk onto your lot, can I walk away with a unit?
Yeah, so we don't have them just yet ready to go. You can buy them off the lot and they're ready to go right now.
But in the future, next year.
Yes.
But when I want to buy one next year, what will a round number be?
Yeah, so our flagship model is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 720 square foot single story property. It's 2 45-foot containers joined together, and that is $150,000 for that unit today. But with that, again, that price will decrease as we do more units. Just like plasma TVs used to be $20,000 when there were only a few people that had them. As they became more ubiquitous, now you can win them in drawings and, raffles and such because they're so cheap. So it's really that type of thing where we only can reduce the cost as those
As
first
you
early
go.
adopters get in and, or somebody comes and says, hey, we want to get 20 at once. Well, this is a different price point. It wouldn't be $150,000 anymore because we're doing a volume.
And then
Very
the
good.
second question had to do with your saying you were concerned about the employees getting a better share of the profits. And it sounds like you have sort of you mentioned it. Anyway, so is that what you've got as what's your profit sharing mechanism, whatever you want to share? I know some of it might be private, but.
No, not at all. It's actually very much open book. That's part of the whole cooperative approach, like unions, where it's like open book accounting. So I designed it out the gate before I brought a single team member on to where we share in profit equally. So I don't own 99%, and I'm doling out pieces as people come on and trying to keep as much for myself. I've never had complete control of the company from the onset, because again, I understand that the people are who create the wealth that work in the organization. So I don't want to be one of those guys that's being paid, me and my C-level C-suite are being paid 70% of all, the revenue or the profits. We're keeping that and we dole out what we want to the employees. Is equal across the board. So it is equal profit sharing. We don't have a flat democratic governance model because that creates chaos, but we do have democratic governance in aspects of it. But my biggest part of that was about the profit sharing because there is so much involved. And then it gives us the ability internally as an organization with those who align, everybody who joins oftentimes aligns with the mission and vision of seeing, underdeveloped and undeveloped communities, more developed, obviously. And they will then start to repurpose their profits, their share of the profits collectively or with their own friends and family, and begin doing their own development projects or deciding to open up their own satellite location somewhere else, in the community elsewhere that's too far away for us to deliver to, but needs it just as much as we did here in Dayton or the surrounding area.
Well, I go out to Dayton for work pretty regularly. So maybe when you've opened up your space, I'll come and check it out.
You're more than welcome.
I'm very curious.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for coming.
Thank y'all for having me.
This is outstanding. All right, friends. Well, thank you very much, Kémo. All the best with your endeavors. I'm wondering right now how we get you in front of Rotary Club in Dayton, because the best thing about Rotary is our global reach. We're in all communities. So maybe we'll work with April and give a raving review and get a hold of the local Dayton club, get you out there. I'm sure there's probably 3 or 4 clubs out there. Awesome, folks.
And if I could share is it okay to share the link for the crowdfunding? It has the deck. Everything I shared that I just shared in the deck is on there. And in fact, frequently asked questions and a lot of good info, along with the opportunity to invest if you think it looks good. But again, of course, there's no obligation there.
Feel free to send us your slide deck too, Kémo.
I will do that. Yes, absolutely.
Awesome, mate.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.